Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to another edition of the Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club's Westry Horne Cultural Heritage Lecture Series, where we have the distinct honor of presenting to you today a very special presentation by a man whose legacy speaks for itself, who will be introduced to you by my fellow yokemen in our fight for justice and the empowerment of our peoples, John Brinkley. But our presenter for today is none other than Mfundishi, Jhutyms, Hassan, Salim. But before we jump into that, I just want to welcome you and thank you for joining us for this special broadcast. Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club is in its 60th year of service. And as we celebrate those 60 years, we find it necessary to continue the efforts that we have become known for. And it's those efforts that we are proud to continue to stand in, proud to continue to strengthen and to broaden with our reach for the young people and the generations that follow after us. Each year, through our scholarship and educational programs, we help provide opportunities to local young people who wish to further their educational attainment beyond high school. We also host free seminars and workshops like this one to help educate and empower community members in key areas, including the unspoken truths of Black history, financial literacy, and health and wellness. To enhance the lives of the most vulnerable people among us, the Frontiers also provide key mentorship programs for young men throughout our region. We work alongside community members to fight for social and economic justice and equal human rights. Lastly, but certainly not least, we provide scholarship opportunities to help deserving high schoolers pursue a college degree or professional certification following their high school career. We are Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club, and we stand for advancement through service. As is always the case, our format and protocol will be such that in a few short moments after the introduction of our speaker or lecturer for today, we will turn the floor and the mic over to him. And at that time, it will entirely be at his discretion how it is that he will engage our people. So I encourage you, if you have not yet done so, share this broadcast, invite your friends and family members and loved ones so that they too can experience this empowering and engaging event. It is promising to provide us with some key insights that often are left untold about Africa's impact on America. So, as is normally the case, I do want to mention that the Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club is a 501c3 organization. As such, all qualified donations are tax deductible. We cannot do this effort without partners like you. So we encourage you to donate to our efforts, and you can do so through three different methods or avenues or platforms. So to donate to our scholarship fund, you can do so through Zelle using phone number 732-470-4207 or PayPal in the name of our treasurer, jess.marshall@verizon.net. Otherwise, you may mail a check to our P.O. Box 428 Plainfield, New Jersey. Checks must be made payable to Frontiers International Plainfield or Plainfield Frontiers. At this time, I'm inviting my fellow yokemen in this fight for justice, none other than yoke fellow John Brinkley, to give us our introduction of our presenter. And immediately following after that, the next voice you will hear will be none other than Mfundishi Jhutyms. Young fellow Brinkley, how are you?
Hotep. I'm doing
Hotep.
fine. Thank you, Brother Safir. Hotep, everyone. Greetings. I'm going to introduce our brother MC Jhutyms Hassan Salim on a couple of levels. First level is personal. Um, Going back to when he was at Livingston College, my wife was an administrator there, and Hassan was the president on the Livingston College part of Rutgers University. And moving also to when he had Black Gold, which was a combination store where you could get African products and you can get spiritual enlightenment. Both my sons went through Hassan's, who I called him at that point, manhood training, where they learned about the motherland and how do other aspects of African manhood. But Mfundishi, Jhutyms, Ka and Haru, Kamal, El Sim, is a great grandmaster, Kemetic, priest, scientist, African village chief. He is highly sought after consultant in areas of holistic wellness, African heritage, and languages, education, international cultural immersion programs, and entrepreneurship. As a world-class Africanologist, educator, author, and lecturer, he speaks in the Americas, the Caribbean, Africa, and Europe. He's founder and president of Jehudi Haru Nebku Kush Kem. And to continue, Hassan has taken many groups to the continent, and he is a mainstay. Like next week, there will be the International African Arts Festival over at the Commodore Barry Park. And if you want to see him, I'm sure he will have his booth there. So without further ado, let me introduce the great Hassan Salim DC Jhutyms.
Yem Hotep, Ankh Uja Seneb Neb. Peace and harmony, everybody. It's always a pleasure to come before the masses of the people and be able to present our scholarship the way only we can do it. Only African people can tell African people's true story. The lion story will never be told by the hunter. So I need you to be clear about that. So it's imperative that we as an African people tell our story that will help us present us in our true light. So I hope that is clear. And I'm going to talk about a relationship between the United States of America, Africa, and its people. And so this story is told in several different ways. If people have been following me, I've been telling this story, I guess maybe all my life. In the 1970s and 80s, I had several books out of African poetry. And in the 80s, I had several plays, Seven Shades of Black, Life and Times of El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. Then in the 90s, I produced a book, Kupagana and Gumi, Root Symbols of the Netcheru and Ancient Kemet. Then towards 2000, I came up with Spiritual Warriors Are Healers to open up and put us on the right path towards spiritual consciousness, because it seemed like religion had become a poison to an African people. And then I came up in 2017 with the book Menchu Hotep in the Spirit of the Magi. And I was proud to say that I won an award for one of the best historical novels for that. And then this year, 2021, the sequel, Shimsu, Haru, Minshu, Hotep, and the Spirit of the Magi. So those are 4 books that you can actually purchase now. I'll be putting my books of poetry out also this year. But they all talk about a relationship between Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora, and specifically America. So it's important for us to make this connection. I have my board up, so hopefully you can see my screen. And it talks about Africa contribution to America. And it's by myself, Mfundishi, Jhutyms, Hassan, Kamal, Salim. So as I move, we've been taught that these are our ancestors. They are the founding fathers of this particular country. And I want to say, no, these are not our ancestors as an African people. These at the bottom are our ancestors. So I want that to be clear. So now, yes, these are our ancestors from Kemet. All right, so I need to be real clear about that. Okay. Having problems moving from one slide to the next. Okay. Just 1 minute. I'm trying to get move my slides. If my technical assistants can help me. If I pull up the slide board, I can't seem to move my slides.
Yes, Mfundishi, you should be able to, once you click into PowerPoint, use the arrows on your keyboard. That should help to simplify.
Wait a minute. Sure. Okay, that's still not happening. I can't physically move the. Oh, okay, now I see. Okay.
If you click into the bottom of your PowerPoint, where it's showing slide 3 of the existing number.
Yeah, it says 3, but it doesn't. When I click it, it doesn't go to 4.
Once you click it, then you should be able to use your right arrow. Or even spacebar.
All right, I'm using the arrow and it's not moving.
So if you like, I mean, we could.
If you put the little pictures back to the side, I can hit the picture that'll come up. Remember we took it off? I hit a button.
Yes. So that would be on the top of the screen. I wouldn't be able to do it from here, What I will say is, if you like, we could just take a quick intermission, and if you want to email it, I can broadcast it from here.
Oh yeah, but if I can just hit the slide,
Yeah, be sure you're doing it right in the PowerPoint and
oh,
not in the broadcast studio.
okay, full screen. I can't do anything. I can't manipulate the slide.
Do me a favor, hold the Alt button on your computer keyboard, and while holding that, press Tab, Alt Tab,
Okay.
and that should put it in the front for you. Or maybe do it twice.
Nothing's happening. Do you remember I hit the arrow to get rid of the pictures on the side? Can we put that back? Then I can just hit the pictures since it's not advancing.
Yeah, you would have to go to Home on the top.
But it's not letting me enter.
Unless it's frozen. So let's pause for a brief intermission,
Okay.
and then everyone, we will jump right back on. So please don't go far. We will be right back with you once we've addressed our technical difficulties.
Sorry about this. We should have tried to advance before.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. We have now rectified all of the technical difficulties that have beset us. However, because of the importance of this key topic, Africa and its impact on America, and all of the untold truths about our history and the whitewashing that often occurs, I thought it befitting to continue to broadcast while we dealt with that so that we can continue where we left off. I'm going to bring back before you our presenter for today. He is Mfundishi Jhutyms, Hassan Salim, and he, among many things, is he is a holder of the ancient Kemet and ancient African sciences. He is a Kemetic priest scientist, an African village chief. He's a highly sought after consultant in areas of holistic wellness, African heritage, and languages. And he is also the great Grand Master Kemetic priest. And in fact, he is a spiritual warrior for the development, maintenance, liberation, and independence of African people. So join me again as we welcome back to the broadcast, Mfundishi Jhutyms. Welcome back, Mfundishi. You are now live, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Peace and harmony. Okay. Again, you'll see our screen. A lot of times we are told that these are the founding fathers and ancestors of our nation. And I would like to say that these are the people who set up this particular country, but they're not our founding fathers. If we see clearly, these at the bottom are truly our founding fathers. And I need to be clear. So I want to show this slide. It says, how do we honor and give praise to our great ancestors? Number one, we speak and write their names the way they did it. That's number one. As long as you say a person's name, their energy is still alive and in the universe and operating. When a person is totally dead, everyone has forgotten them. Their name has never been spoken, and their works are not etched in stone someplace where someone can read. Secondly, we honor our great works of these great ancestors. And so that's what we're doing. We're living. So you can see images and pictures here where we honor the great works that our ancestors do, their contribution to architecture, as you'll see here, their contribution to engineering, as you see here, their contribution to art, as you see all over here. That some of this art cannot even be duplicated to the level that our ancestors were able to do it. And we've left images and edifices behind, okay? And then what we're doing in this presentation is that what is the incomplete work that was not done? And so that's what we're doing, the total liberation of our mind, allowing us to know how to move from third, fourth, fifth dimension at will. These are things that were not completed. And so now we are here to help try to complete this work. And then number four, we have to leave concrete, perfect images of them in carvings, sculptures, paintings, statues, monuments, so that their likeness will be remembered. Now, our contribution to America is that the Freemasons did this. They etched in stone. This is them. Whose forefathers are they? Whose forefathers, the ones that we see here, their history don't include us. I'd like to say that all of these former presidents and heads of states of America were all former slave owners. They raped, tortured, and divided black families and put their white seed in our race. Their laws did not pertain to us. We were considered 1/5 of a man during their time period. So the next time you honor these particular slave masters, understand who they were. Understand that they enforced the slavery conditions and the division within our race. Whose forefathers? Not mine. And really, or if you're a descendant of an African person, not truly yours. Okay, so it's imperative that you at least know who they are. Yes, they are the people that set up this country, but what were they doing? So now let's take a look These are our forefathers. This is a council of ancestors from us, from across the water throughout the diaspora. We have some immediate ancestors like here, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, J.A. Rogers, Chancellor Williams. These are examples of our immediate ancestors who helped us understand who we are on this road. People who are local, like Paul Robeson. He was born here in New Jersey. He put Rutgers University on the map. Phi Beta Kappa, all-American football player, all-American, everything he did, he touched. Sang in over 20 languages, traveled international around the world. He is an ancestor to us. This is the type of people we need to see in our history book. So I need to be clear. So again, what are the contributions of America? What did Africa contribute to America? Well, some of it has been what I would call theft. You see, when you have a real contribution, that means you give credit where credit is due. And unfortunately, our former enslavers have used African images, African concepts, African even spiritual personas without giving Africans true credit. And so I'm here, and thank you for the Frontiers for inviting me to help show you just a few of these images. And this can be contributed. Again, if you look at my books and my work, you'll see a continuation of what we're doing here. So my expression is use it or lose it. And so if we look to our three right here, we see the American seal. This is the seal of the United States of America. If you look slightly to the left of that, you see this an African seal that was used in the Happy Valley, ancient Egypt, what we call Kemet. And so if you look, it's a direct correlation. The 13 colonies represent the sun, Ra, here. That was the whole body. These are 13 arrows and 13 leaves. Here in the tie lines, we said life for eternity. Life for eternity. So they didn't copy it exactly, but they took as much as they could. Now, let me just say this. America's colors, red, white, and blue. That was the colors of ancient Kemet, red, white, and blue. We have to understand that 52 of the 55 people who signed the Declaration of Independence were all Freemasons. That means they were studying ancient Africa. I need to be real clear. They were studying ancient Africa, and they tried to duplicate a Kemet in the West. So that's what America was supposed to be. So you want to know what is Africa's contribution? The whole United States was set up trying to imitate Africa, and specifically the Happy Valley, but only in whiteface. And so the whole foundation of this country owes a tribute to Africa. So I need to be real clear, okay? So if we look at here, we see the all-seeing eye. That's the eye of the falcon, the pelican falcon, which is symbolic of the king in ancient Kemet, the Nasut Biti, the ruler of ancient Kemet, okay? They understood that. And so they duplicated this information. Now let's look again. America gives an award out every year for the person who's mastered their craft the best. Whether that craft is mastered in this particular acting, the best male actor and female actor, they receive something called the Oscar. Well, if you look at this Oscar award, that award looks like an African guy, African Netcher, Asar. It also looks like Ptah, who was what? Master of crafts, the master craftsman. And so here we are, the most prestigious award for any actor in their craft is an African symbol taken directly from the Happy Valley. So again, what is our contribution to America? They have kidnapped, they have stolen and hijacked many of our images, and we are totally unconscious of it. But it doesn't stop there. The Tekken. The Tekken is in the center of our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., we see something they call an obelisk, the Washington Monument, they call it. Well, the Washington Monument is an imitation of the African monument that we see here in ancient Kemet. The real McCoy here in Kemet, Northeast Africa. Here it is here. And they are imitating this at the center of Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Okay, what does this symbol represent? It represents resurrection, renewal, rebirth. It's a male phallic symbol of Asar and Haru, because traditionally every temple had two tekens, one on the left, one on the right. One represent Asar, resurrection, renewal. One represent Haru, rebirth. And so there will be a constantly continuation. Here at Central Park in New York City, here, there's a teken behind in Central Park, behind the Metropolitan Museum. The Metropolitan Museum is a place where many of the stuff that was stolen from Africa is on display. Okay. And here it is. Central Park is befitting because where the teken sits at that one point in Central Park, that used to be the Black community in Manhattan. They displaced those people and created the park there. And then later, the teken, resurrection of our African ancestors, would be placed there. And so this is not an obelisk. It's not a Cleopatra's needle or any of that stupid stuff that they try to tell you. It is a teken, and it means resurrection, renewal, rebirth. It's a male phallic symbol of Asar and Haru. Okay, and if you go to Washington, D.C., and you walk inside at the bottom, you'll see George Washington sitting there like he's one of the kings of ancient Egypt, inside of a chair that looks like the Pharaoh's chair, trying to imitate what they saw in the Nile Valley. And I need to say this, not only is it in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital now, New York was the first capital of America. So I'm trying to show these parallels. What is African contribution? Everything that you think is really great and really dynamic is our contribution. Remember when I said, how do we honor our great ancestors? Here, the origins of Freemasons. Again, is an imitation of the study of ancient Northeast Africa. Here's George Washington wearing the apron, the grand apron, and here are our African ancestors wearing the apron. The only difference is that this one is 4,000 years before this one. And so who's imitating who? You need to see that. The sacred symbols that we hold, that this country was founded on, are all African symbols. What contribution? What has Africa done to America? America is based on an African persona. And now let me just show you again. I teach a lot of times that we're upside down, inside out, and backwards. And so what America does, as opposed to teaching you symptomatic thinking, that means concretely know what it is so I can research it and know for myself. They talk about symbolic thinking. Symbolic thinking means just listen to what I said and don't ask any questions. And so that's how you get bamboozled. And unfortunately, my people of African descent, here in America and in the diaspora, you've been bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray. Malcolm, El Hajj Malik, El Shabazz told us this over 40, 50 years ago. So they've bombarded us with superstitions that don't make sense. For example, if you see a black cat, when you're looking at this black cat, what's the first thing cross your mind? You're thinking, oh, I'm going to get some bad luck. Something bad is getting ready to happen. No, all it means is this cat's crossing your path and that he's going somewhere. He's probably going home. That's it. No superstition. You need to get rid of that. That's the symbolic thought. All religion is symbolic thought. We have to go back to symptomatic thought. A friend of mine, Edgar Ridley, who wrote the book, The Golden Apple, talks about the brain can only operate two ways, either symptomatically or symbolically. Symptomatically is innate to the human brain. That's how our ancestors learned, created, and became geniuses. Symbolic is what somebody just taught you. So our brain got kidnapped to symbolic thinking. Therefore, I can just run anything on you and you believe it. Like you believe those are your founding fathers, even though they raped and enslaved and upheld the slave institution. Okay. I'm saying that we're upside down, inside out, and backwards. Everything you think you know, you need to relearn it. You are looking at the world through the cultural eyes of your former enslaver. I know that's hard for you to understand. Think about it. When we go on vacation, we want to go where Europeans go. We want to go lay on the beach, even though we might have a nice golden brown, black complexion, because we're imitating them. We want to go to Paris. We want to go to London. We don't want to just go to Africa. You know, we don't want to go and see our ancestors. That's what they do. When they're going back to Europe, that's what they're doing. They're going back to see their ancestors. They're going back to see their homeland. So what do? We want to go to Europe to see their ancestors, their homeland. We got to change our thinking. Now, I'm not saying forget everything you learned. I said you need to relearn it from an African-centered perspective. You see, culture is your medicine. If you don't have your culture, then you don't have your medicine. Then you're subject to get sick. And so the most long-lived of all people on the planet now have the shortest lifespan because we don't have our medicine. Our culture is part of your medicine. So let me just give you some examples of how you've been bamboozled, where they've taken your stuff, changed the language, and you don't even know it's your stuff. Okay, first of all, ancient Kemet is called Egypt today. So now Egypt is the United Arab Republic, so you think that Arabs are the ancient Egyptian. And totally wrong, totally wrong. Our African ancestors, Kemet was the mouthpiece of the African continent. That means all the greatness you see in ancient Kemet was preserved, imitating and emulating what was happening in the interior of Africa. And so Kemet is the mouthpiece of the African continent, not just that little Nile Valley. It's reflecting everything. They etched it in stone in the Nile Valley so that we today, over 5,000 years later, can still read it and understand it. Here, they've captured another word, Pharaoh. So you no longer know the word Nasut Biti, ruler of Upper and Lower Kemet. You no longer know the name Sarah, the son of the sun. You no longer know the golden Haru. You no longer know those names. You only know the name Pharaoh, which isn't even Kemetic. That's Greek for, it's a Greek name for Per-Ah, the great house. But this is how, so you see a movie today, and who are the pharaohs? No, who were the Nasut Biti? Who were the sacred divine rulers? Here, this symbol that houses the king's name, they call it a cartouche. That's French for a cartridge bullet. When Napoleon came to Egypt in 1978-79 to conquer, not to share or to help, to conquer, they saw these little images all over the place. And so they called it a cartouche because it kind of looked like a bullet, a cartridge bullet. And now here we are, 2021, calling the Shin the circular orbit in which the ruler presides over a cartridge bullet. Our ancestors are turning over in their grave. Here, hieroglyphics. So we think we're honoring the writing of our people. No, hieroglyphics is Greek for sacred writing. We call our writing Madu Necha. Here it is right here. Madu Necha. They etched it in stone so that we would know. Madu Necha, the divine words of the elders on behalf of the creator. That sounds a lot different from just some sacred writing. That means there must be some writing that's not sacred. Okay. Sphinx. They got you saying this is the Sphinx. Sphinx is a Greek mythological creature with wings that will kill you if you don't know the riddle. Has nothing to do with our African monument, Haru M. Aketi. Haru of the rising and setting sun, protecting our legacy, our culture. Haru M. Aketi, not the Sphinx. The Nile. No, that's not the name of our sacred waters. It was Itiru Hapi, Hapi Itiru. Okay. Nile is again some Arabic word. That means nothing. Has nothing to do with the longest river in the world. We're disrespecting the longest river in the world. Okay, so we got to put things in this proper spatial perspective. Mummy. How many of y'all seen the movie The Mummy? And we're talking about it. In ancient Kemet, they didn't have any mummies. It was called a sahu or an ib. That means to prepare the body for eternity. And if they didn't dig up our graves and rob our graves, those sahu would still be there looking just like they would be for eternity. Pyramid. That's another Greek word. This is a pi. a cake, a pie. We call that symbol a mir, and a mir kut, fire. Mir. That's the personification of what we call the pyramid. We need to read, and here's one that they did much damage to. All these symbols at the bottom, they said were gods and goddesses. The gods of Egypt. And they got 100 books. The gods of Egypt. No, these were netcharu. They were principles and laws. You see, they learned from it. Tesla studied in ancient Kemet and created electricity because it was already done in the Medu Neter. Okay? A lot of people have went to Kemet and they've learned things and then brought it back. I just want you to know that these are African concepts. African concepts. So here you see the Haru Imaketi again. We see it here inside of the Metropolitan Museum. You even see these images on state buildings, municipalities, all throughout Europe and America. They got the lions sitting out front. There's no lions here. So again, they're taking our legacy and then using it for their advantage. All I'm saying is that I don't have a problem with them putting the lion up there. All I'm saying as an African, a person of African ascent, is that give us credit where credit is due. Yes, these are African symbols and images we are using because they are glorious. Just say that. That's all. You don't have to say you imitating and you biting hard. You don't have to say that, even though we know that's what's happening. Just say these are great images and they are African images. And we are using them because they personify greatness. Therefore, African people can hold their chests up. Oh, wow. America is admitting that almost all the images they hold of value is African. And so we talk about what is African's contribution? It goes way beyond what I can do in this presentation. Spirituality is not a religion. Being spiritual just means you are in touch with your own divine self. You see, we've been so bamboozled. Watch this here. We will look at hieroglyphics. If I look at the symptomatic says this hawk vulture represent the ah sound. Ah, ah, okay? This is a glyph of that symptomatic. This is symptomatic. This is a glyph symbolic of the symptomatic. This is a drawing, which is further symptomatic. Then we take an abstract concept and say, this is a continuation of that, that was using Coptic. And so a Coptic's another group of Africans who in the Mediterranean area, right? And now the Coptics learned taught it to the Greeks, and then the Hebrews also developed their language from that. And now here we are in America, we're writing, and we think we're great. We created writing. No, there are more African scripts than all the rest of the scripts in the world. I'll say that again. I don't want nobody to think I stuttered or said something wrong. Africans have more scripts than all of Europe and Asia put together. There is no English script. There's no Russian script. There's no French script. They are all using our stuff. So I just need you to be clear about that. Just be clear. All we're saying is that, no, you have the right to create that. Just give credit where credit is due. We must develop symptomatic African defense system. You see, what America has right now, the reason why America is a superpower is because they have probably the greatest army on the planet right now in terms of firepower, in terms of destructive power. Okay? So military might, America is king. So that's why they're at the top of the totem pole. But where did they first learn something like this here? Look at the Magi warriors of ancient Kemet. Okay, today with our weaponry and modern technology, we're able to do an equivalent of what the Magi were able to do in ancient Kemet. We have to understand that Kemet was finally defeated for the first time by the Persians, the Syrians and the Persians, going back. Well, first we had the Hyksos, who were Asiatics who came in with superior weaponry, the horse and chariot. Then we were able to develop greater horse and chariot, beat them at their own game, and chase them out. Then came the Osirians and the Persians. They came in with great military power and overran us. Okay. Dr. Clark liked to tell us that was our last great walk in the sun when they defeated the so-called 25th dynasty. Okay. But what America has done is duplicated that in a modern sense with technology and weaponry to go beyond that. And so they've just done it to a different level. All I'm saying is that Africans, you need to really take a look at your own spiritual system. Even religion as we know it is just borrowed spiritual system housed in another cultural paradigm. You see, spirituality takes you out of the box. So let me just say, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, all those isms are just a box to contain you, to control you politically, economically, and culturally. See, if you belong to any one of those, I have a predictability of your behavior. And if you belong to that, that means that your behavior is outside of your cultural paradigm. Dr. Clark said they laughed at our religion and we changed it. They laughed at our images of God and we changed it. But they followed our formula. They made their image of God in their own image. All I want to say to you is that we didn't try religion. We tried putting our hands up saying, don't shoot. We've tried marching and singing. Maybe it's time we get back to our ancient African spirituality. Just maybe. So just take that into consideration. Whoever controlled the minds of our children controls our future. So take a good look. Let me say that again. Whoever controlled the minds of our children controls our future. This is an African concept. If you were in East Africa, like the Swahili or the Zulu, and you ask good morning, and they would never say good morning, but if something equivalent to that, they would say, how was the children? Because to them, the preparation of developing a children's mind is the most important thing you can do. There is nothing, because they continue to your immortality. If you don't control the minds of your children, then your children will become your own enemy. You understand that? In Swahili, we have a proverb that when two brothers fight, a stranger inherits the land. And I just want to take another African proverb. Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya says this one. He says, when we first came in contact with the Europeans, we had the land and they had the Bible. They taught us how to pray. We closed our eyes. When we opened them up, we had the Bible and they had the land. And that's what's pretty much happening now, y'all. We have to control the consciousness of our children. You begin to awaken the very moment you realize one fact. You are creating your reality through the energy of your consciousness. You are your consciousness. Your consciousness is your soul. You don't have a soul. You're a soul and you have a body. We have to recapture our consciousness, brothers and sisters. And how do we do that? We do it by first remembering who our ancestors are, knowing our history, knowing our culture, and then glorifying it. Okay, you have to understand that. And then glorifying it. That's what Europeans are doing. Every park you see a picture of George Washington or they even have the people from the Confederate Army who so-called lost the war. Their statues is all over the place because it represents white supremacy. And so that's why you can see these statues of them on the horse. You see, because they're perpetuating their ancestors and their glory. We have to do this as African people. Nobody can do this for us. We have to leave those images. Here you see an image. Tut Ankh-Amen tried to leave his own image here. But Hawass wrote a book and Tut Ankh-Amen and had a computer-generated image looking like a white gay guy as the image of Tut Ankh-Amen. You see, when they are in control, they do their thing. We have to be in control. So you're insulting our ancestors. You're trying to say our ancestors don't know what they look like. Here are dancing girls who are the harp. They're playing flutes. They're dancing and singing. But we got all white women playing Cleopatra and Nefertiti and Nefertari in all of the movies. Like, we don't know what we look like. Here, Mentuhotep. This was his royal court in ancient Kemet. Look at the people. They almost blue black. But yet you won't see this in any movies. So it's like an insult to African integrity. They're trying to tell us we don't know what we look like. Europeans are going to tell you what Africans in the Nile Valley look like. They look like them. And so all these dynamic images that our ancestors left on the walls and tombs and temples, they're trying to say, oh no, that's really all wrong. We'll tell you what y'all look like. That would be like the fox telling the rabbits what they need to be doing to get themselves free. I think you will become rabbit stew. And that's what Africans in America have become, rabbit stew to the wolf, who are the Europeans who control America. All I'm saying is that our contribution is so tremendous and so great to the very fabric of this country. And we just don't even know it. Ignorance is the greatest disease known to man. And right now, African people are wallowing in a pool of ignorance. All I'm saying, and ignorance just means not to know. It's not something inherited. It's not something in your gene pool. It's not something in your DNA. It just means that you don't know. You haven't been taught. And you haven't been taught how to tap into yourself through meditation to find out some of those things. So again, look at the images. And let me say this, Africans throughout America, we have to create positive images for ourselves. Look at ancient Kemet here. Look at the images. They always depict themselves at their very best because they were controlling the images of their ancestors and they projected excellence. We as an African people have to go back to project excellence at whatever we do. Excellence. We have to take back our music. We need to take back the sports. We need to, how come we don't have black coaches? And we know how to do the sport, but we don't know what the sport is all about. We can do the sport better than everybody, but yet we can't coach nobody else how to do it. That seems like some contradictions there. We must return to a holistic healing system. We are, if you look, even the Greeks and the Europeans worship Imhotep, who was an African healer, an African genius. He was actually a multi-level genius, a writer, an astronomer, the vizier of the Nasut Biti, of the king. He was a doctor. He was a poet. He was a scribe. He was all those things. So we'll imitate him. Asclepius is paying tribute to Imhotep. So every doctor says an oath to Asclepius, which is Imhotep. So you're praying to an African doctor who gave you this. But he was a herbalist. Today, the third leading cause of death is European pharmaceutical drugs. And so our doctors today are killing us. And it's unfortunate that almost all of the medical symbols are connected to Africa, like Jhutyms staff and things that, like if you look at the medical things. An awakening is about letting go, my people. And that's letting go the paradigm of the matrix and embracing what is yours. Today, be thankful and remember of how rich you are as an African people. Melanin is the most expensive chemical compound on the planet Earth, and you are trying to get rid of your melanin. You have to, your family is priceless. Your time is like gold, and your health is your wealth. So, brothers and sisters, you have to go back and recapture who you are. I need to say, we must teach our children to be unapologetically Black Africans. I'll say that again. Teach your children to be unapologetically Black Africans. And we have to stop the whole Willie Lynch syndrome of fighting among each other. And see, that was taught on the plantation. So Africa saw how, Europeans saw, the Americans saw how to control your enslaved people. They saw how to be good leaders. They saw examples of Africans who were good leaders. And then they saw, okay, this is how we have to control their minds. We have to make them think that we are the greatest thing that ever happened to the planet. And so many African people believe that. I've even heard African preachers saying that Africans on the continent never contribute to history. They didn't even create a boat. There's a preacher in Harlem that says that, okay? So that's ignorance. I'm not holding anything against him. He's just ignorant. He just did not know. And I want to tell all the Africans who are listening, we got to stop bickering among ourselves. The only difference between a Puerto Rican, a Dominican, a Jamaican, a Haitian, a Cuban, an African American, an African from Brazil, and an African on the continent. The only difference is a boat stop. A boat stop. That's the only difference between us. All of us come from the African continent. Now, how do we begin to take back our mind, brothers and sisters? We talked about this contribution. Almost everything that's great in America is from Africa or from African people, or African people are doing it. What is America's original, America's classic music? America's classic music is jazz, created by African people. Jazz is created from the blues, and the blues is the songs and the rhythms from Africa. And so jazz is an improvisation from African music. And so here we are, and we can just go down the list like that. I was on a track team representing America internationally, and it was an American track team, and the whole team was black. And so the other people begin to look, wait a minute, isn't America predominantly white? Why is America's U.S. track team all black? Not predominantly black, all black. Okay? And then you ask, what is our contribution? It's almost funny. So now I'm saying, to take back our mind, we need to go back to symptomatic thinking. I don't want to do all this talking and not give you some gold nuggets to help you recapture your mind. And so what you need to talk about here, it says, I give you 5 nuggets that you need to try to master. Number 1, the mineral domain. The universe is made up of minerals. The stars are minerals. The planets are minerals. And you are made up of the same minerals. We are stardust, just in a different algebraic expression. You heard the expression that we are the children of the sun, because sun is the source of life on this planet. Now, I don't want to say any names, but we got some people allergic to the sun. So if you're running from the sun, where you from? All right, let's move to the second one. The plant domain. We must master the plant domain. The plants feeds off of the minerals, and is the vegetation of the planet, whether it's in the water or on the surface. It is the fuel and the healing remedies of the whole planet. And so all the creatures in the water and on the plant, the things that can heal them is the vegetation. That's the plant domain. Air wasn't allowed to exist on the outer surface. It's coming from oxidation and things that are happening from the plants. The plankers from the plants giving off hydrogen, and like the trees and stuff, giving off hydrogen and oxygen. And so we're able to breathe, and all life is due to this plant. So plant domain is extremely important for you to understand the herbs. Remember, your culture is your medicine. Plants provide a healing remedy to almost everything that you can do. And so if you are sick because of some natural causes, there's a herb, not a pharmaceutical drug, but a herb that will help cure you. Most of our grandmothers and great-grandmothers were all herbalists. But today, we depend upon the doctors who are killing us to help heal us. There's a contradiction there. Go back to the African way. The African way is herbs. And America got that from Africa, but now they've resorted to control because capitalism seems to be more important than life itself. The animal domain. All animals were here on the planet Earth before humans. Human is the last animal to exist on the planet. They are here. All the animals are here to teach us how to survive this earthly terrain. The original Americans here were Africans, and then later came the Asians, who we call the red man. But they both lived off of the land. They both were in harmony with the planet itself. They never killed an animal without using it totally. And they would never abuse that. They didn't go hunting for sport. There was no such thing as hunting for sport. You hunt for life. And we use every part of the animal that we did kill. But basically they learned to plant, and they were herbalists, and they understood the nature. Now, when the European came here, he didn't understand that. He killed off all the buffalo, killed off almost all the wildlife, overplanted, didn't understand the rotation of crops, destroyed the soil, and we're in the predicament we are today where almost everything is GMO. We need to go back to understanding that. Animals are here to teach us how to survive, but if you're eating them all up, There's a lot of secrets you will never learn. Okay. Number 4, the human domain. We're psychotic humans because we don't know nothing about anything else. We don't know about the mineral, the plants, or the animals, and we're trying to find out who we are, not knowing that we're an extension of all those things. And then the spirit domain. Some of us are trying to understand the spirit domain and don't understand that there's spirit in the trees, spirit in all the plants, spirit in the minerals, spirit in the animals, and you can connect with them. When they asked George Washington Carver, how did you invent 300 inventions out of the peanut? He said, I had a spiritual connection with it. I talked to it. I got up 5 in the morning. I watered it. I made love to it. I showed it that I care. Unconditional love. I showed gratitude. The African proverb says that whenever 2 energies, whether it be you in a plant, you in a mineral, you in an animal, you in another human being, you in the spirit, when unconditional love is shared, spirit shares with you secrets. And so this is how we know things that have never been taught to you. It is shared by you communicating. This is why meditation is so important. So what did our African ancestors contribute? We contributed the whole concept of meditation. The original priest on the planet were African priests. The prototype of a priest is an African priest from the Hopi Valley. We see that. We brought it to Asia, and then from Asia into Europe. But those are poor imitations of the Kemetic spiritual priest, who was a master in the martial arts, who was a herbalist, or who understood these 5 elements. So Africans who are listening to this, and even Europeans, anybody can listen to this. If you're listening to this, try to understand these 5 domains. This is Africa's contribution to the world, not just to America. Understand minerals, understand plants, understand the animals, understand spirit, and then you will have a greater understanding of humans. DNA. Now we're beginning to study the DNA. Even in the Medu Neter, they have symbols that look like the DNA, and they show that our DNA is the oldest DNA in the world. So that's not even questionable. There's 6 types of type of animals that are the ancestors to Homo sapiens, and all 6 exist on the African continent. Only 2 exist outside of the African continent. So it shows you that Africa is the homeland to all people. So everybody's DNA can be traced back eventually to Africa. And so what is our contribution to even America or the world? Yes, our DNA is a contribution. That black melanin is imitated in nature, and the 95% of the cosmos is a black plasmid hydrogen, just like DNA. And carbon is the foundation of the mineral domain, like chlorophyll is the foundation of the plant, like melanin is the foundation to the animal domain. So if you understand that chlorophyll takes sunlight and synthesizes it into food, as Africans, as melanin, through our skin, we take sunlight and also do the thing. You can think in your skin if it's melanin dominated. We haven't studied melanin here in America, even though America has been doing a melanin conference since 1936, and almost no black people are invited. That is because someone else wants to use our melanin to help their life. They don't want to contribute to the contribution of our life. But melanin has all these positive contracts. In the AM, your pineal gland releases serotonin. Serotonin is a form of melanin that keeps you awake. It helps your physical properties, helps you retain your youth, your motor skills. This is why African people look more youthful. I'm in my 70s, and some of the guys think I'm 40, and I can still move and act just like they are. And in the martial arts, I'm better than all my students put together, still at my age, okay? So this is melanin. This is a melanin contribution. Helps with your motor skills, helps you absorb nutrients better. It neutralizes toxins. It prevents the spread of damaged cells. It speeds up your impulses. This is why you're able to move quicker. This is why we are the fastest people in the world. But not only are we the fastest people in the world, we also are the best at long distance. No one can hang with the Africans from the continent, from Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia. They are even Egypt, they are the kings of long distance. And yet the sprints, you have Americans, the Jamaicans. Remember, the only difference between American and the Jamaican is a boat stop. The Trinidadians and all of them. We are the most dynamic because that spark, melanin gives you that spark. Okay. It doesn't mean that Europeans can't run fast. I'm just saying that melanin contributes to the dynamics that you have in sports. But it also enhances your memory. And so there is no griots like the African griots. It increases your communication skills. It enhances your feelings. We feel the planet. The Europeans can destroy everything because they don't feel it. So don't get mad at them. They don't feel what you feel. I know you think everybody see what you see, but no, your eyes is dark brown, heavily black in the middle, and melanin. People with gray, blue, all those other color eyes, those are veins and arteries. They don't reflect the same thing you see. They don't see the bright colors that you see on the spectrum. I know you think everybody sees the same. That just shows that you just been bamboozled. They want you to think that everybody's the same, but everybody is not. Melanin enhances your creativity. There's nobody more creative than African people. I have to even say this. Even when it comes to messing up African people, we can mess up African people more creative than Europeans can mess us up because of our creativity. Creativity doesn't understand good and bad. It just is. Spiritual properties. Nobody's more spiritual than African people. And this is how we get bamboozled into religion, because we are a very spiritual people. We didn't understand that this is our church. The Netcharu is all nature. This is what our church should look like. Not some little synagogue or some little temple, but this is where we go. The idea of the constellations that we use today when we're doing the zodiac is an African contribution. You learn Aries. In the African world, it is Amen, the persister, ruled by the planet Mars. You have Taurus, the bull. We have Ha'ap, masculine, Hetharu, feminine, the golden calf, builders, ruled by the planet Venus. They give you Gemini. We have Shu Tefnut, boundless space and moisture, the thinkers, ruled by the planet Mercury. They give you Cancer. They told you it was a crab, got you going sideways. No, it is Kepler, the dung beetle, the strongest creature on the planet Earth in proportion to its size. Do you hear me? And they got it all wrong. The feelers, ruled by the moon. Leo, the lion. We got Haru, Aketi, or Sekhmet, the lioness, the executioners. They have Virgo, the virgin. They didn't even know who Alset was. She is the analyzer, ruled by the planet Mercury, represent love and affection and harmony. Libra, the scales. You notice in their thing, the scales is tilt. We had Ma'at, not Libra, Ma'at, the balancer, ruled by the planet Venus. They saw a woman with a scorpion on their head, and they called it Scorpio. No, she had a name. Her name was Serket. She is the desire, ruled by Mars. Okay. Sagittarius, they got some animal, half man and half human. They didn't understand Kinsu. And Neith, the woman and male warriors. They are the seers, ruled by the planet Jupiter. Capricorn, we have Harry Chef. They didn't even understand that. The users, ruled by the planet Saturn. Aquarius, they saw him with the water bearer. They know it's an air sign, but they didn't understand that he was happy. He represents happy. The knowers, ruled by the planet Saturn. And last but not least, Pisces. They told you it was the fish going upstream and downstream, not knowing who Mayit was, the great creature in the water that makes the connection between man and water creatures, who was the believer, ruled by Neptune. That's just an example of how you've been bamboozled, brothers and sisters. And most people know what's in the blue. You know this. You have no clue what's in the black. And most of this in the blue is wrong. What is Africa's contribution to America? And I need to say, and the world? Our concept here The great mother, the great Madonna is Haru and Aset, suckling. And so those people who are Catholic and the denominations, you're imitating an African religion. They just put it in whiteface. You believe in the resurrection, the rebirth. That comes from ancient Kemet, the Happy Valley, Northeast Africa. You, the father of resurrection, Asar. They just gave you somebody else in their name. Resurrection, rebirth. Your mummification process where you have a casket is the Karas in ancient Kemet. You have the mortician who is Inpu priests. And you do believe that there is a soul. These are African concepts. African concepts. If you go to Washington, D.C., you have the Arlington Cemetery on the west bank, right, of the Potomac River. That was an imitation of ancient Kemet. Here we have the Valley of the Kings on the west bank of the Nile, of the Happy Itiru, the Happy River. And so again, what is America? We're totally imitating everything that was done in Africa here in America. Doctors and medical field use Jhuty staff. All these are medical instruments off of a wall in ancient Egypt. These are the medical instruments used today, the exact same ones from ancient Kemet. What did Africa contribute to America and the rest of the world? The whole medical persona is an imitation, except for in Africa, you didn't get paid if a person was sick. You got paid when a person was well. Today, the Europeans reversed that. Remember I said we're upside down, inside out, and backwards? Today, when you're sick, you're still paying the doctor. And then he gives you some medicine that's going to take you off the planet. But he creates a residual customer first. We didn't have anything like that. The priest came along and gave you free herbs. You didn't have to pay for the herbs. Today, they make money off of it, okay? So they took our invention, they took our concept and turned it upside down. So when I say we're upside down, inside out, and backwards, people, that's just not a phrase. I mean that. When you when you love your loved ones and you go to the cemetery and you see a tombstone, that tombstone is an imitation of what Europeans thought Africans were doing. This is called a spirit door. We have a name for it called the wedge and the abba, the spirit door. The wedge and the abba are names for structures built inside the tomb temples used to as a portrait for the Ka, that's the spirit of the deceased, to enter this world. Their use was consistent throughout the history of Kemet. They moved on to the tomb and into the home of the average person. Egyptologists call this structure a false door or a stela. There is nothing false about it, and it is not a stela. The stela, your tombstone says born 1940, died 1980, and your name, and that's all. This spirit door tells you who you were, who your titles were, who your family and mate were, and how you were connected to nature, and your contribution, like an obituary at a funeral. All that's African. The obituary concept is not European, Greek, or even Asian. It's African in its origin. So almost everything that you see at the funeral thing, even when people are wearing black, actually they should be wearing white. What happened, the Greeks saw Inpu was black, who was the one who prepared the body. And so they thought everybody was supposed to wear black. So they start wearing black, and you imitating the imitator. So you wearing black instead of white. Upside down, inside out, and backwards. Relearn everything you've learned. Don't get rid of it. Just relearn it, my people. All religion is a box. Give reverence to your ancestors. Stay in tune with your culture. Nature is your church, and your sacred shrine is your home. Keep your home clean, clutter-free, and put images of your loved ones and culture. If I walk into your house and I can't tell the African person lived there, then you got the wrong cultural paradigm, and you're probably sick. Your body is a sacred temple. Honor it. Keep it clean. keep it in shape, have quiet time daily. See, they don't teach you this because they want to keep you sick, send you to the doctor so that you can have medicine. And medicine is going to send you to the hospital before making you a residual customer. Brothers and sisters, go back to nature. So there's some things that our ancestors who came here first were doing that we have been talked out of our game. We got to go back to doing what your great-great-grandparents were doing. You got to go back to your own farming. You got to go back to growing your own herbs. That was a legacy done in America. Even the first European whites who came here were doing that. Set up an altar in your home for your loved ones and for the ancestors. So have one for the ancestors and one for the living. And you put images of your ancestors there. And on the one for the living, you're constantly talking about what is your contribution to the world? What is your mission? Why were you sent here? Love and respect your family, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Help build your community, brothers and sisters. Now, Europeans got that concept from Africans. We are the ones that help build our community. We loved our community. A new person came to your community. All the women would get together and bring a cake to welcome them. That's even in the Medu Neture. I don't know if some Europeans do that. I don't know if they do that, but I know the black folks from the South used to still do it. People who were called country, they still did it to welcome. That's part of being one with the community. You have a day where you go and you clean up all the, we stopped doing that. Okay. Help build your community. And you need to belong to a Pan-African organization and an organization that has your best interests at heart. And so I'm happy that the Frontiers are a service community. Their idea is to help bond and keep the community together and help fill in the voids where it is. I want to make a statement to them. I heard them say they have a mentoring program. Maybe they'll see me afterwards. You need a Jegna program. Mentor is a Greek god that sodomizes his victim, then teaches him how to reach to the top by any means necessary. That means if you have to get rid and kill all the competition to get to the top, the mentor helps you do that. Corporate America has mentors because it's a dog-eat-dog system. We want a Jegna. A Jegna is an Amharic word from Ethiopia, and it means a spiritual guide who is a spiritual master to help you perfect your journey in life. That's different. And that's what I think the Frontiers are doing. They're helping young people, hopefully, not just join corporate America, but help them to be successful in life by knowing who they are, by being men, by being women, by understanding our relationship to nature and understanding our relationship to family, understanding our relationship to our motherland, and helping all people, but always yourself first. And then last here, develop and perfect your gift to the world. Follow your mission and your purpose in life. People, you will constantly hear me say, for example, that we are all visitors to the planet Earth. We come here to learn first. That's for a little baby. Why? How come? Constantly ask, because you come here to learn. Then you come here to study. So after you learn the stuff, you need to study it so it stays entrenched into you. Then you share it. Everybody's not a teacher. Some people will teach it, but everybody can share what you know. Then you're here to love and protect the planet itself so that you can continue your journey here on this planet. And then last but not least, complete your earthly mission and then return home. Here, we taught everybody the concept of divinity. And so here they have Serapis, they have Baal, Amen, El, all imitating African Asar. Then you have Serapis, you have Zeus, and then you have Jesus. Okay, all imitating the African original. And so even when you're studying religion, it's an African concept. It's just that you've taken out of the cultural paradigm. Black folks are the biggest supporters of Christianity and Islam, the same religion that enslaved you. And yes, people, Islam enslaved you. In fact, Islam actually had about a 1,000-year head start on Christianity. The Arabs conquered Egypt in 640 AD, or the Common Era, 640. and have been colonizing and enslaving African people ever since. Okay. And Europeans just conquered Africa only going back to the 15th century. The 1400s is when they jumped on the bandwagon. That's when they got strong enough to be able to do that. Before that, they were not strong enough to be able to totally enslave us the way that they did. So now we see. Again, it's history, y'all. History. If you look, all of North Africa is predominantly Islamic. All of Central and Southern Africa is predominantly Christian. So both of them are foreign cultural entities to African people and eventually help keep you divided and conquered. Spirituality is the way. Spirituality. And I need to say this when I talk about spirituality. The concept of spirituality is ma'at. Ma'at is truth, righteousness, justice, order, harmony, reciprocity, and balance in all things. We have the 42 laws of ma'at and then the 42 ideals of ma'at. Ma'at was depicted by a black woman with an ostrich feather in her head. And before there was a Moses, there was ma'at. And so Africa's contribution to the whole spiritual system, before the Harabi codes, before the 10 commandments, all of that came from the African continent. And so now as we're moving closer towards, I'm coming towards a conclusion, but I just want you to be clear that almost everything that we hold in value, if we look at our nation's capital, it's imitating ancient Africa. All the way down to the Potomac River is acting like the Nile River. The east side is where all of the monuments and temples and the living headquarters. On the West Bank is where you buried the dead, and that's what they did. The Washington, D.C. was originally 10 square miles, and the Potomac River divided it in half. Half of the capital was in Virginia. The other half was in Maryland. Now listen to this. Virginia comes from the word virgin. The Virgin Mary, Aset. And then the western part is Maryland, Mary, the beloved one. And so this is all African. Everything they did was an imitation of Africa. Africans' contribution to America. If you look at most of them, I think something like almost 60-something% of all inventions is done by people of African descent still today. But we don't control it, y'all. We don't control it. We have to learn to be able to go into distribution and manufacturing. That seems like it's exclusively European and European Jewish. Okay. We as Africans were the original entrepreneurs, the original manufacturers and stuff. We have to go back to that. So some quotes from Dr. John Henry Clark. Know your story through your own classical language. And one of your classical languages is the Medu Neter. This is why I teach hieroglyphics. People can go onto my website, Mfundishi.net, and they can register for my classes to teach you Medu Neter. Medu Neter is one of the only languages that connect you back to nature. It connects you back to culture, connects you back to history. I have 3 master's degrees and the doctors in holistic healing, and none of what I talked about today I learned from Western schools. Africa is our center of gravity, our cultural and spiritual mother and father, our breathing heart, no matter where you live on the face of the earth. All of the evidence of our ancestors left us, and we still believe their books. They knew we would be in this situation, so they left all these monuments and things behind. But people, when you study their character, this is an African proverb that says, the human character is like pregnancy. It can't be hidden forever. So as you begin to study, here we are, the internet has exposed more things than the last 300 years we've been here have been exposed through the internet. And so you can't hide bad character forever. It eventually comes out. Your real enemy is inside you. So I want you to say this presentation, right now, Europeans are not our enemy. They personify the image and are the teachings of the enemy that we have absorbed within ourselves. But our real enemy right now is us. the trillions of dollars that would make us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world, Europeans have set up a system that hamper us from using that money for us, but they're not stopping us. Yes, the banking system is corrupt. The banking system is racist. The banking system that you put your money in still basically only lends money to Europeans on the whole and European corporations. Africans only represent 2 or 3% of the nation's wealth because we don't own anything. And they've made sure through the banking industry and the economic industry that we don't pass on this inheritance. And so our enemy right now is inside of us right now. And so let me say, white America is not our enemy. Europeans are not our enemy. Our enemy is the ignorance that we have been taught by them. We have to get rid of the Willie Lynch syndrome. We have to begin to love our brothers. It's ironic that sometimes we love our former enslaver more than we love the victims of slavery. I don't think that the white man is capable of showing true love to others because his character has always been to enslave and take other people's land. That's a quote by Dr. John Henry Clark. His story is full of him coming in with Christianity and then enforcing their agenda on the same country that welcomed him into it. Example, Africa, Japan, Iran, Iraq, and many others. All of these countries, the same thing. They come in and enforce their way on it. We have to understand his mindset, that he has the weakest genes, and this creates an inferior complex about him. So he must control everything he comes in contact with. And so Dr. Clark is trying to just give you a scientific reason of why the Europeans do that. Because Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who I have up in the right-hand side, saying that because of his inferior gene pool, he's afraid of annihilation. If black people and white people come together and make love, you're going to have little black babies, and eventually white folks will vanish. So therefore, they want to make sure white folks and black folks don't come together and have children. I want to tell my listeners, surround yourself with those who have the same mission as you, and hopefully that's African liberation. Don't get caught up in religion. Religion is your personal business. But when you come out here, I come and I speak with the frontiers. I don't care that some of them are Christians or some of them are involved. That's irrelevant right now. Right now, they are doing good things to the black community. They're doing good things for African people. So I want to surround myself with people who are on the same mission. And right now, by they doing podcasts like this and YouTube channels like this, we're on the same type of a mission. You are a soul awakening, a heart opening, a light shining. You are a divine essence, people. That's my message to you. I want y'all to understand that African consciousness, you have to take hold of it. Assume nothing. Question everything. Open your eyes. Challenge the opposition and start thinking. That's what this presentation is about. When we talk about what has Africans contribute to America, what has Africa done with America, what kind of relationship Africa and America has had, open your eyes and you can see that they've taken everything that we've had and used it to their advantage. And I'm not mad at them for that. I'm just saying, give credit where credit is due. Let people know so that you can feel good about some of the contributions in America, that the colors red, white, and blue were African colors from ancient Kemet, and that you are studying that 52 of the 55 people who signed the Declaration of Independence were all studying African concepts. Just say that. Books you must read. I put some books out here, books, African Philosophy by Thea Bingo, Kemet, The African World View by Jacob Crothers, The Nile Valley Civilization by Anthony Broder, The Ankh by Mi Rajet, Madhu Necher by, again, Jacob Crothers, Kemet, Spiritual Warriors Are Healers by myself, Mfundishi, Jhutyms, Hassan, Salim, The African Origin of Civilization by Diop, Ma'at by Maulana Karenga, Sekou by Wade Noble, the Tree of Life, Ra'ul Nefer Amen, the Husia, Malana Karenga, the Madu Necha. This is just a sampling now. I didn't even inkling. We got so many scholars that's just dynamic. I want to say this. There's no museum in America that has any books in it by any person of African descent. I'm not making this up. Go to the Metropolitan Museum. Go to the Brooklyn Museum. Look in the bookstore. Even go to the African section. Even books on Africa are not written by Africa. Go to the Egyptian section and look at all the books on ancient Egypt. Not one is done by an African scholar. So I'm not making this up, y'all. I'm telling you, you have to be your own custodian. You have to begin to take your wisdom and knowledge in your own hand. White supremacy doesn't give a damn if you're Pan-African, a Nubian, a Hebrew Israelite, a Muslim, a Moor, or a Christian, a Hindu, a Buddhist, or any of those other things. They don't care. All they know is that your skin is heavily melanated, therefore you represent an enemy to people who don't have melanin. I hope you understand that. It's nothing personal. For them, it's business. And unfortunately, their business has created a concept called racism. And then racism is exploitive. It's symbolic thought. It has nothing to do with the truth. Now, Africa has always and still is the prize for the world. We as people have always been the world's richest people, culturally rich, mineral rich. We have always been the prize because we always had and still have something that others people want. They want what we got and they don't want to pay for it. Dr. John Henry Clarke was real clear in his analysis. Now, I'm moving towards my end, people. You are not Africans because you were born in Africa. You're an African because Africa is born in you. It's in your genes, your DNA, your entire biological makeup, whether you like it or not. It's the way it is. However, if you were to embrace this truth with open arms, my, what a wonderful thing. That quote was by Marimba Ani. In closing, this whole thing about what is Africa's contribution, what is Africa's relationship with America, it's about know your story. We are an African people from the continent we now call Africa, the birthplace of humanity. Some of us came here against our free will, but we are here and we have contributed to the fiber and fabric of this country at every segment, whether it's in literature, whether it's in music, whether it's in art, whether it's in technology, whether it's in construction. Black people built the White House. We got the deeds and the things to show it. That everything that we have done here, the Moors set up the foundation of America, some of the construction that the Europeans inherited from the Moors when Washington signed the Declaration of Independence. A lot of those things that you see downtown in the Wall Street construction, their economic system was based upon the enslavement of African people. Stocks and bonds. At first, the commodity was African people. Now it's the goods and services and still African people. We have to understand with knowledge that African people have contributed to America as much and more than any other group here. And right now, as I'm talking in the 21st century, the Europeans told us, well, listen, if you just get a good education and get a good job, then you'll be doing better. And so what did we do? We did that. Black women in America have more degrees than any group in the American civilization and the American complex today. I'm going to say that again. Black women in America have more degrees than anybody, any group in America. That's white men, white women, Asian men, Asian women, black women. But yet they're still at the bottom of the economic ladder. They still are the least paid and make less money than everybody else on the total pole. And so even when you follow what the Europeans tell you should do, it's upside down, inside out, and backwards. That's upside down. You got the highest amount of degrees, you got the most education, but you got the least amount of money. You need to turn that around. Something's wrong there. So, brothers and sisters, you need a constant dose of positive affirmation, and you need it every single day. That's why you have positive affirmations. That's why you go into your prayer. That's why you have quiet time. People often say to me, motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why I recommend it every single day. Black people, take back your legacy. Understood that, yes, you helped build this country. Yes, your contribution to America is priceless and endless, and that the whole fabric of this country is based on African thought turned upside down with a European persona. Hopefully I've said something of value and something of beauty. If I've offended you, get over it and study. Study, study, study. Remember, we come here to learn, to study, to share, to teach, to love. And so I want to use Tony Broder, not Tony Broder, like it is, used a phrase that he used to say. Sometime when he presented something that was very pro-African, people thought he was anti-white. And he wanted to let you know that my presentation here is pro-African. It's not anti-white. It is pro-African. And I want you to know, some of my friends have friends who who are Europeans. And I don't have a problem with it. Thank you. Juar.
Hotep. So Mfundishi Jhutyms, certainly a presentation that will challenge the way that our listeners have been taught to think. We are grateful for your time today and for the presentation. The nuggets that you've dropped throughout your presentation, I believe, will resonate. And even with the controversy that some may inherently take away from some of the points that you've made, I think that besides those points, it still will challenge the way that we think and accept what we're being taught. And so I'm grateful that you have saw fit to approach this presentation in such a way that it doesn't just challenge us to abandon all that we have experienced here in America. Rather, it teaches us to look at what we've experienced and encountered through the lens of African thought and ancient African perspectives. And so that to me resonates most in what you've taught. And we did get a question in the chat. I want to open up this segment now to allow for you to provide an answer. The first question that we have says, what are good references or sources and materials that someone can use to follow up on your presentation?
Okay.
And of course, I'm sure some are going to be your books.
Right. In the presentation, I did present a list of different books. So that was kind of somewhat. Tell the person they need to get my book, Spiritual Warriors of Healers. Almost everything I kind of outlined in that presentation is inside of this book. You can just go to Amazon.com and make sure you get the new edition. Do you see up here? It says the new edition.
Okay.
I've been proud that my book is in over 30 universities on the Africana Studies. Wow. And then when I taught at the university, I used my book as official. That was, that the provost saw it was good. This is good stuff. And so it's not just like I station it. I'm trying to tell you that even the universities who's bamboozling you even said that, okay, yes, in African studies, this book can be used. Okay. Wow. But there's an array. I'm saying anything that Dr. Clark wrote, anything that you see Dr. Yusuf Ben Yaqman wrote, anything that you see that Jacob Crothers wrote, anything that you see that Diop wrote, anything that you see that's promoted by the ASCAP, the Classical Association of African People, all of these giants, Anthony Broder, anything that you see that he's written. Today, Brother Kabak has a book out called Spirituality Before Religion. You need to jump on this. It talks about, a lot of things I'm talking about. So hopefully people didn't feel offended when I talked about these religions. I want you to study them. There's good in everything. I want you to analyze it from a symptomatic thought, not symbolically. Not Simon says do this. My preacher said do that, do this, do that. Study, share, learn. symptomatically, understand where it's coming from, understand its source. And so a lot of things I taught you here, some of the things you already knew. You just didn't know the source. You've been to Washington, D.C. You've seen the Washington Monument. You didn't know that was an African symbol. You didn't know it represented Black manhood and resurrection and rebirth. Many of y'all belong to the Masonic order. You didn't know that was imitating ancient Africa. You thought that these were some Masonic orders, European, and the great teachings that was passed down to them. No. Go ahead. Next question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. So I do want to highlight for all of our listeners your website. It is shown here on the broadcast, highlighted from the chat, but it's also in the chat. So you can click, listeners, directly on the link that we've shown there. It will take you directly to Mfundishi.net, which is the new website. It contains a lot of information about not only you, but much of the work that you are doing, and certainly some of the books that are available. But again, those are available on Amazon.com. We do have a second question now coming from the esteemed Willa Cofield, someone else who, like you said, seeks to better life for those that she encounters. And so she says here, do you think that you could develop interactive workshops which would help us digest some of the knowledge about African culture? Or have you already done so?
Yes, and yes. Right now, even in New York, in Manhattan here, organizations like yourself here, like the Frontier, have put together a website that's citywide. And the last Tuesday of every month, I teach the whole Manhattan. All Black people who want to learn, I'm teaching them the same stuff that I just went through today. But even on a more refined level. I had to, contain this presentation, shorten it up, But I'm doing it for a whole year. Wow. The last Tuesday of every month. So this, I do this presentation on the website. So I could do something like that for your constituents, develop a study group. I have another group, actually some students from Plainfield, New Jersey, who are taking my book, Menchu Hotep, which I just won an award with as one of the best historical novels, and it's being looked at as being a movie by HBO and Netflix. Want to do a series on this, and it's a volume 1 and volume 2. You can see both of them, 1 and 2. But anyhow, I'm developing a study guide of that, and I'm doing another study guide. I'm doing a study guide for spiritual warriors and healers. I spoke at the largest Black history program in all of Europe just before the pandemic. It was in Birmingham, and then part of it was held in London. And I was shocked. Over 100 people came to the conference with my book, Spiritual Warriors and Healers.
Wow.
Already, and that's international. In France, I've done 2 or 3 lectures in France. Right now, they're trying to do my book in French. Because they got it, but they can't understand all of it because French is their native language,
Right.
But just think of how many French-speaking Africans are in the world. I'm also having the book done in Spanish. So when you look at how many Spanish-speaking Africans, how many French-speaking Africans, I'm trying to reach out. What I've been taught by my Jegnas, and I hope y'all understood when I talked about Jegna versus mentor.
Yes.
I made a footnote of that. Okay, and Jegna is Jenga, Jenga, Jegna, N-A. Okay, Jengna, Jegna. Okay, that what my Jegna has taught me is that what you're doing today to help African people anywhere is global. Because the things that you confront in Plainfield, the things you in New Jersey, the things you confront in New York, Africans in the West have the same problems. Africans in the Caribbean have the same problems. Africans in Europe have the same problems. Africa and Asia have the same problems. And so when you begin to solve problems locally, you're helping Africans solve problems internationally. And so we got to start thinking global. And so even as I'm developing a school in Ghana, our education will be in-house with brick and mortar, but it'll also be global via internet. That means you can take one of my classes here in New York, here in New Jersey, or in Timbuktu, or in South Africa. So you got to think global. So I hope I answered her question. Yes, I can do that for them, and that's what we're trying to do.
Awesome. Well, we certainly will remain connected, and as any new initiatives unfold, we hope to either partner or to share that information with some of the community members that we engage with, so that they can participate as well. There is another question that we have, and this is coming from John Brinkley, your fellow Brinkley, and he's saying here, do you think that schools are the best place to educate conscious Black children, i.e. the Amistad curriculum? Okay. Or should there be education outside of this traditional school system?
Okay, I'm going to answer that in two parts. All right, the first part is that if we're talking about Board of Education, I would say no. The Board of Education is set up to continue to enslave our children and to make them clones and workers for the power structure that wants to keep the status quo. And so if you remember Trump saying, make America great again. And so someone asked him, when was America great? And it was during the time of slavery.
Right.
So,
exactly.
So we were in a subservient position, and at the mercy of Europeans. So the educational institution, look, I listened to a brother one time and he shows you a picture. He shows you a picture of a 1920 car. And then he shows you of a car today, 2021. And we got cars that can drive themselves today, totally automatic, that speaks to you, that, air condition, control, everything. Totally different from cars of 1920, right? Brother John, if you look at the educational system of 1920 in America, it's the same educational system we get today. So here we are 100 years later, and we've made no difference to the educational system. It's the same classroom with rows in it, and the teacher up front, and you got to raise your hand. You're being taught to be obedient. You're being taught to contribute to the industrial complex. You're being taught to get into the prison industrial complex. Okay, both, they got two ones. The industrial complex to work you to death, and the other one to house you till you die. Okay, so the school system is set up. So yes, my brother, for example, the school type of setting that I set up in Africa, every classroom, everything is circular. The teacher is in the circle. Everybody can see each other. Your monitor is you're updated. You're learning totally different. You don't have to learn in your oppressor's language. If your native language is Ashanti Tree, then you should be taught math in Ashanti Tree. You can understand English and French for international, but you need to uplift your native language. So as African people, you notice no African languages are taught in school. A predominant Black school district where 99% of the kids is Black, and you can only take French, Spanish, or European language. You can take Russian and Chinese, but you can't take an African, not one, not even Swahili anymore.
Wow.
So a drastic change needs to happen. And yes, we need to take school into our own hand. We need to revamp how we do school, even the setting, even the atmosphere. Like I said, a 1920 car, a 2020 car, totally different.
Right.
1920 Board of Education and educational system, 2020
Wow.
the same.
Wow.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very important to highlight. We recently had, I guess actually there's a teacher in the Plainfield school system, or at a Plainfield school by the name of Joel Plummer. And he wrote a book called Supermodels and Sumo Wrestlers. And while the name itself might be confusing at first, in the book he highlights how the education system that is leveraged today to teach Black children is actually designed to maintain and protect the existing power structure.
Yes, sir.
And you can't teach a sumo wrestler the same skills as a supermodel and expect him to excel and succeed, at least entrepreneurially, in his craft, because he's been taught how to walk a runway, how to pose. But the moment he steps into a ring, he will be obliterated. And so it's the same concept that exists. And I'm so glad that you put it the way that you did, because if we don't enter into this school system that currently exists with, and we may have few other options, if we don't do that with our eyes open, we'll make the mistake of taking for granted that that school system has our children's best interests in mind.
And even if it's in blackface, and even if it's all black board of education, but it's the same paradigm. The paradigm is corrupt. You need an African-centered paradigm that has love in the center. That means that even we can teach white kids, Hispanic, it doesn't matter what kids it is. They learn in the truth. Right. They learn everybody's contribution. See, even the multidisciplinary that the Europeans have put out, multicultural curriculum, it's written by white people. Mm-hmm. So they tell you how you should be thinking about Asians, how you think about. No, everybody needs to tell their own story in a different paradigm.
Right. And you can see that the evidence is there because even today, the biggest contention that we're seeing when it comes to public education is critical race theory, where folks are up in arms about the idea that critical race theory, which seeks to teach the truth behind racism structurally and structural oppression, is met with such contention and protest.
Opposition, yes.
Yeah.
Because the truth is irrelevant here. How do I maintain control? How do I maintain control over people who, if the playing field is even, will surpass me?
Right.
Right? You know, so we can't have the playing field even.
Right.
You know, and the educational system makes sure, even a IQ test. An IQ test is a cultural test. It's a European cultural test. Let them take an African cultural test.
Right.
I have to give homage to a comedian who has just died recently, Brother Paul Mooney. But Paul Mooney said even when they had the Plessy versus the Board of Education, and they put the little 3 and 4 years olds, and they said, which doll is the best doll?
Right.
The white doll or the black doll? Oh, the white doll is the best doll. What doll looks good? Oh, the white doll looks good. What doll is smart? The white doll. What doll is bad? Oh, the black doll. Right? What doll do you want to be? The white doll. Yeah. What doll do you look like? Like insanity. The white doll. Right?
Yeah.
You know, so you see something, and that kid ain't even in the school yet. So where they learned that? They learned that from just looking at society, watching television, walking downtown, then walking through the hood, and all of that is computed without even reading that in the book. They never read white is superior. Okay, so you have to change the paradigm. Remember, in the presentation, I talked about how we need to control images. Mm-hmm. You know, Brother John, we got to write the books. And the book's got to be from a different paradigm.
Absolutely.
And I want to say this here, and I have some of my colleagues that disagree, but I'm going to say this anyhow. I think black, white, and all groups can work together. Mm-hmm. But I believe it has to be based on ma'at, which is an African concept of truth, justice, righteous, harmonious balance, and black people have to be in charge. Because
I'm sure, like you said, many colleagues would disagree.
Here's an example. We taught the first group of Europeans. The Greeks were imbeciles, backward savages. We created philosophy for them. All of the Greek philosophers studied at the feet of Africans at their temples when they got scholarships to come to the mainland, Africa. Then they went back and taught their people. You see that?
Right.
That's the best example, right? So I know what people are saying. They say, oh, no, I don't know about that. I'm saying, okay, I'm using symptomatic thinking. I can give you real life stories. I can give you real life examples. But there's no example of them teaching us from their paradigm and we coming out being the best for African people.
Wow.
They have destroyed us. Every place Europeans have went and taught their doctrine, they have destroyed the people and the culture.
Yeah, indeed.
So see, history, Malcolm taught me this, history rewards all research.
Wow. Yeah, well definitely.
We have to be in charge, and ma'at, truth, justice, righteous, harmonious balance has to be the scale.
Right, and it must be restored, absolutely. So again, Mfundishi, Jhutyms, I'm so grateful. We're thankful that you joined us on today. Again, I'm certain, according to all of the responses that we've seen thus far, that all of those who have joined us online are appreciative of what they have gained today as well. It is my hope that they will take away what they've learned, that they will allow it to begin to transform the way they view the world, so that we can begin to get back to who we are, so we can then become who we're meant to be. So I appreciate you again. I'm going to now prepare to close, and I will be allowing you to go backstage again to speak with Brinkley. But again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on today. As is always the case, we want to continue to provide these types of platforms so that we can engage and empower our community members, so that we can provide advancement through service. We are Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club. I am the president, Safir Jenkins. You were joined today. I was joined by Yoke Fellow John Brinkley, and of course, our presenter, the dynamic and the undeniably great and profound lecturer, Mfundishi Jhutyms. Thank you again for joining us today. And it is my hope that following today, you will begin to view the world through the lens of historic and ancient African thought. And as we move forward, we do so together. Together we rise, and divided we shall fall. We are Frontiers International, and I bid you adieu, and I wish you a phenomenal day.